I wanted to talk today about the branding of my book and of my spiritual consulting business, Torn Between Two Worlds. The first part of my life, I was confronted with the conflict in myself between the church and between science. And the first book in the series of Torn Between Two Worlds is Torn Between Science and Religion. As an engineer, I was conflicted in what I heard in the stories of the Bible versus what I saw in nature. How could this world be created in 6 days? How come it's supposedly 6,000 years old when there's so much evidence against that? And over time, I realized that it's not one or the other, that it's not all science, it's not all just believing in the Bible, which there are two sides to the story. But we need to go further beside from what we see in science and in nature and what is in the Bible to come to a conclusion that there's truth in both places and that we try and come up with a middle road where we can use our logic and reason that God gave us to find the truth, because the Bible is not necessarily all the truth, and it's been misinterpreted over time. And the same thing goes with science. With a one-sided view of science, you don't come to a conclusion that is fulfilling. Maybe there's a Big Bang, yes, but what happened before the Big Bang? Um, there's all sorts of drugs on the market to address issues that aren't successful, specifically in mental health. So maybe there's something more to mental health than just chemicals. These are some of the examples that I talk about in my work, and helping people to find a middle road, to know when to select what it says in the Bible and know when to listen to what nature is telling you. The other thing that I was confronted with during my life was trying to understand the difference between rhetoric and wisdom. After starting to study philosophy, I had come across the works of Socrates, and in essence, that's what his name meant. He wasn't born as Socrates. He had a different given name, but at the end of his life, he became Socrates, meaning he spoke out and uncovered the sophisticates. And the sophisticates were the ones using a mixture of truth and lies to persuade people, which is called rhetoric. And that's now a very important topic for especially students to be able to grasp. We have all this information at our fingertips, and how do we discern what is true and what is false, what is wise and what is popular? Um, that's going to be an ongoing topic as we go forward in life, and it's an important topic to address, helping young people to learn the difference between wisdom and rhetoric. When I had my first spiritual awakening and discovered the spiritual world and the mysteries of it, I was torn. I was torn because I was working in the financial markets, and I discovered something so profound that it made me question my profession. And I spent many years struggling with this issue, and finally realized, with the help of spiritual teachers that I had, was that we can't escape the material world. We have to live in the material world, but we can live in the material world with a spiritual viewpoint. There are these monasteries in the mountains, and people think that you have to go into the mountains and get away from humanity in order to discover spirituality. That is an extreme view, and it's running away from the world we're living in. What we have to do is to discover spirituality and then to share it with the people around us. Share it through how we live our lives, through how we deal with death, how we deal with conflict in our lives, and a balance between the spiritual world and the material world is needed to be successful in life. As I said, we have to live here during our lifetime. So, how do we blend our life in the material world with our spiritual knowledge? The fourth dimension in the Torn Between Two Worlds series is something that has plagued me my entire life. It's being torn between modern medicine and spiritual healing. I say this because I've seen how modern medicine has been dangerous for many people around the world, but specifically within my family. They are given drugs to change who they are, how they feel, and this is done because people aren't willing to understand the differences that exist in children. Uh, they say you have ADHD when you're just bored because you're not interested in the subject matter. You're not interested in the topic that's being discussed. Instead of trying to find out what the child is interested in and what motivates them, we give them drugs. And that leads to a miserable life for those people. So I've struggled through my life of when do I go to a doctor, or when do I think about the underlying cause of a sickness that I might have and those in my family. I mean, many of the sicknesses that we have are caused by how we live our lives. And yeah, we can take pain medication or other medication without changing our lives, which would also eliminate the pain. So the fourth area that I cover in Torn Between Two Worlds series is to think about what are the underlying causes of disease, of pain in your lives. And yes, sometimes it's right to go to modern medicine to get a heart valve replaced or to get something taken care of. But other times we can eliminate the pain and the suffering by changing the way we live, and thinking more spiritually about our lives. So that's a summary of the 4 books that I've written, and gives an idea of where this Torn Between Two Worlds comes from. It's not promoting the idea of extremism, of living in two worlds, but how do we live in those two worlds and to be successful navigating when to move into modern medicine, when to worry about your spiritual health, when to listen to the Bible, when to listen to nature and to logic and reason.